Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Payne. Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. We've got NerdLoveTV here with us today.
Hey.
Thanks so much for joining us, man.
Really glad to be back. It's
Great
been a
to
long
have
time.
you on. Yeah, you're on our very first episode, so it's really nice to have you
Yes,
back. And
it's amazing how things come full circle,
Right?
I guess, hey?
Yeah.
So much has happened since then in crypto.
And for a lot of people who don't know, he's behind all the thumbnails and a lot of the creative aspects and design and stuff, not just for Blu Ocean Games Guild, but other parts of our company too. And I thought it would be great to have him on today to talk about Web3 first-person shooters, because maybe if you just want to let everyone know what some of the things you've been doing lately.
I mean, yeah, I'm streaming nowadays Tuesdays and Fridays. Tuesdays I'm doing the Game Guild night with all of the Blu Ocean Games Guild members, and we're just showing off all the different games that we're playing. It's open to anyone to come and join us. And then Fridays I'm just streaming whatever I'm feeling like. Most of the time it's a Web3 game, but here and there I am playing Fortnite or something a little bit more that everybody's more commercially used to, for sure.
But I've noticed you've really jumped into first-person shooters a lot more over the last bit. Would you say Web3 was a big reason for that?
Yeah, honestly, that's the reason I've been picking up almost every shooter I can use to practice, because a lot of these shooters, they seem to be modeling off of different like existing games. So I figure if I get a little better trained at those really polished games, that'll train me up for all these. But it seems to be a lot of FPSs and a lot of MMOs. Those seem to be the two like big, that like the RPGs and the FPSs are the two models where there's just a lot of
Yeah, it was kind of
opportunity.
interesting. I'd say out of every genre right now, there's more in that FPS bucket than any other.
Absolutely.
There's just more different types of games that fall within FPS, where it's such a large spectrum now. And I mean, we're going to see many more coming up.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about some of them, some comparisons, some things we like, some things we don't like, and kind of just have a broad, open discussion about it. Because, like, there's quite a few on the top of my head that come to mind right away. Like, the first one I think is the Bornless.
Yes.
Right? And I think what these guys have done a really good job at is the atmosphere that they've created and kind of the lore behind the game. Like, there's more that I feel attached to. I know what's going on. There's the Lesser Book of Solomon's with the demons.
Yeah, I think that the fact that there's a baseline to like, oh, they have like something in the real world that they were basing this off of. They have like even their characters, you can tell just by their appearance, they were really well thought out and tried to make them as different as possible. They have the character models in game now. And like, yeah, they're making a gameplay formula that I have never seen. I think that's my favorite part, is that they're making a really great universe to live in. And then on top of that, they're making a gameplay system no one's ever seen before, where you have like a battle royale, but also a demon, kind of like Dead by Daylight, but then you're also working together and taking care of different kinds of game modes. So like, I'm really excited to see what that team's doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think about like the safe houses, which are like the spaces, I guess, if you were to compare it to Big Time, or like
totally
a land asset in like Mavia or these other games. And basically everyone in the faction or guild is going to be able to use this safe house. You can play poker, they talk about, you can listen to music, you can get ready for raids, and there's even going to be like 40-50 man raids against like demons and like monthly competitions.
Okay, I hadn't even heard about that level of it, but that sounds like really good, because and that lends to what I was just saying with the world building, because they're living inside of this sort of 50s type of, like, you're not playing with modern guns, you're playing with Tommy guns and old school Winchester rifles and whatever, right? So yeah, and you have all these amazing licensed like 50s music, so that just adds to it, right? Like, you expect, once you've been doing all this crazy like demon hunting type of stuff, you'd want to go back to your, you know, your hunter's safe house and throw down some poker, have a couple shots with everybody, and talk about all the crazy stuff you just did. Right. The raid, I hadn't even heard of that.
It's in their white paper, and there's just kind of a little mention of it, but they talk about how there might be like a monthly raid, and factions have to compete against taking down the raid boss, and there'd be special rewards and stuff. So yeah, I agree. They're doing something unique, and we're seeing a lot of first-person shooters. Not that this is necessarily bad, but they're simply duplicating or copying pre-existing successful
it's this game,
models.
but crypto.
That's right. Whereas this one's like, yes, it's crypto, but it's also a whole new game that hasn't been thought of or created before. So they're innovating. Yeah. And I love projects that are innovating. I actually find that pulls me towards projects more. I mean, I've found some amazing projects that are almost like a carbon copy of an old game that I'm still interested in, but it just doesn't get me as excited. You know? And I mean, like, there's quite a few other FPSs that I can think of that are all doing good things in their own way. Like Meta Ops is kind of another one. Yeah. Like, for them, the biggest thing for me is the feel. And like, for me, I'm a little biased, because growing up with Counter-Strike, I kind of always want to get back to that sense of satisfaction of like, how does it feel to shoot a gun? How does it feel to get a
the
headshot?
sniper, the
How
assault
does it
rifle,
feel?
does it feel like an assault rifle?
That's right. And Meta Ops, I found, has done a good job at that. Like when I get a snipe shot or a headshot, it's like, yeah, it's satisfying. Where a lot of these other FPS shooters aren't giving me that kind of same sense of satisfaction.
Yeah.
But what would you say Meta Ops is kind of missing?
I think Meta Ops, like what they do well, they're like you said, they're going out of their way to do things that increase the fun factor.
Mm-hmm.
Like to the point where like they're just making sure that the feel of every gun feels right. For example, like their new pistol that they added in from their zombies mode feels like the Halo 1 pistol.
Yeah,
you can just go real fast and get a nice accurate couple headshots to ping people off. Feels great. You know, maybe there's more realistic ways to do some kind of pistol from Call of Duty, but they wanted their pistol to feel good like it feels in games that have a good feeling pistol. So it feels like all the guns have been modeled that way. But I think, what they're missing is just, more content in terms of like, what are all the rest of the levels going to look like? What else are we doing outside of these levels? Who are these soldiers? Are we on Earth? Do we have a single player campaign to expect? Like, maybe that's just because they haven't revealed those details, but definitely that's the part that I find is missing. Is they've got all the gameplay super tight, but unlike the Born list, we don't know any of the background for what's really going on yet. Maybe they don't need that. Not every game needs that, but I think that's definitely important at least to address.
I would agree. And I mean, a lot of these projects too, like, aren't really officially released yet. There's still so much more.
The alpha.
Yeah, I'd say Eve.io, which maybe we can segue into now, is probably the most released out of any of them. And for people who don't know what that is, it's a web-based browser shooter, which has a lot of benefits because you can take anyone who isn't familiar with crypto and tell them, hey, go to your web browser, type in ev.io, and you literally log in as a guest into a lobby and you're playing the game. So I think as far as accessibility goes, they've nailed it. But there's obviously a lot of limitations on the graphics because you're dealing with browsers. And same thing, I don't really know, like, who is my character? Why are we here? But they have all these different game modes that I feel like because of all those different game modes, it does make me feel like I'm more into their universe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you don't always have to have a story, and you don't always have to have, like, sometimes that's just tacked on and that just detracts from your gameplay, especially if it's heavily multiplayer focused. But usually when you're eschewing all that stuff, you need to fill it in with a lot more content, a lot more game modes, and a lot more stuff to do to keep that dopamine release going, right? Otherwise, if you're not getting it from the story and the universe, you got to be getting it from the collectibles, from the items somewhere, right?
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, definitely. And EV, again, they've got the gameplay formula down to a science, but some of the parts I don't like is that they've scaled so big so fast. Ad revenues constantly supporting everything now. So I mean, I always have to watch full screen ads. I don't know about you, but I don't really like watching a 5-second ad in between rounds. But
it would be a lot better if it was on like a billboard while you were playing the game as opposed to
totally. Do I know why it's there and I understand it? That's why, absolutely. That's why I'm willing to permit still watching the ad and still playing EV. But would I like to see it done in a less obtrusive way that still gets people to earn some currency and still supports that system? Yeah, I think the main problem with that system, like you said, is that like not only are they inhibiting the earnings by having to just refill this pool all the time that people then extract, I think not every gamer, and especially not every even play to earn gamer, wants to just literally play to earn tokens and currency. I think that sometimes for me personally, I much more prefer earning cases and NFTs and utility items that I can use in the game or use to monetize some kind of function. That's what I like the most about the Forge Arena system.
Good one to bring
because
up.
what they're doing is, you're earning this scrap token, but that's really just a facilitative token to help you with their cases. You're earning these weapon cases that have cool skin NFTs in them, with randomized chances to open. So they're kind of like loot boxes in a sense, but you don't have to buy them necessarily. You can grind them by playing the game. And then if you get a bunch of bunk ones that are all copies of things you don't want or don't have or already have, you can just burn 10 of them, get the next rarity up, and get another reroll chance at getting a newer, cooler NFT. So the longer you play the game, the more of those floor skins you can burn up.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I do think that inherently with like a token reward system, there's this inherent play to extract that gets created.
Such a good term.
Right? So then now people are simply playing to extract value from the ecosystem, which actually makes it harder to keep fueling the whole thing and can actually cause kind of a race to bottom. Where if you've got NFTs, utility, these loot boxes, well, Now you have a choice. You can keep them yourself, you can use them to progress in the game, or there's a secondary market where you could resell. So I feel like there's less pressure on this needs to be sold because I need to make money, and more of like, well, maybe I want to keep some to progress because I can earn more later, or maybe this one was really awesome looking, so I'm going to hold on to it, or maybe this will be worth more later, so I'll hold on to it. And it just gives people more, like, I want that. I don't want just token grinding.
Me
And
too.
I mean, we've kind of experienced that with a lot of clickers.
Yeah.
And we've seen that generally a lot of them are very difficult sustainability wise. But if there was a lot more NFT rewards, utility rewards, I think the games would do better.
Well, yeah, when there's NFTs and actual unique assets as a reward, they have monetary value anyway.
That's
based
right.
on how awesome or rare they are. So
Yep.
why give somebody tokens that are just worth X amount of money and then have everyone obsess about the ROI on that exchange rate? Instead, there's things that are unquantifiable that are in NFT skins, like
Yep.
you just explained. There's certain skins that they're really cool. They are worth not a whole lot, but I want to keep them and they mean a lot to me. So
That's right.
that's why they're valuable to me. Then there's other skins where it's like, I never use a sniper.
Mhm.
I don't need an M1. I don't care how rare it is. So if I get a legendary sniper that I'm never going to use, guess what? I'd much rather sell that to somebody who's Mr. Sniper guy
Yes.
that's ready to get in on the top of the blockchain and show off his cool sniper skin. Right? It's wasted in my hands.
Mhm.
Why should it be against the terms of service for me to give it to somebody who wants it and then
That's
get
right.
some currency that I can either spend on more cases or go play a different game with?
And I think with Forge Arena, something that I'm most excited about with them is their vision.
Yeah.
Kind of where they want this to go. I mean, they already have debatably, if not the largest NFT skin marketplace, period, for any Web3 game. And that in itself is a huge accomplishment. But think about what they can do as they progress and add in more game modes and start to create more of a community and really polish the game. And like, I just see a lot of potential there where some of these other first person shooters, I see the potential, but not on the scale that I see with Forged.
I also see that everything they've designed between the tokens, the UFT, the NFTs, all that stuff, it's all designed in a way where they can where it self-subsists.
Yes.
Like, for example, even like the skins, they didn't really obsess about creating some huge complex two token system. They just made it very simple. If you have 10 commons, you can burn those, thereby reducing the amount of commons and appreciating everybody else's commons.
Yep.
And then you get a reroll at getting a new minted NFT of something someone doesn't have or that you want.
Yes.
So all the people who are the OGs, they're not just sitting here with a trillion commons and I don't want any of them because I've got the coolest items because I've been grinding forever.
Yep.
You have a chance at getting all your coolest items you're still grinding for by turning all those smaller ones into higher NFTs or just selling them to the people who want to get into the common level.
Plus, they're really appealing to a lot of people who are versed in this space that want burn mechanics. They're looking for that. They've seen the success with companies burning millions of tokens and all this stuff and how it appreciates price. And that's why these blending systems are so important. And I really like that when we first started seeing kind of breeding, blending, pick your name. They've kind of have coined different names depending on the genres. Some have done it well, some haven't done it well at all. But it's nice to kind of see that people have learned from all these past projects' experience with it. And now we have like a refined blending process like this.
Yeah, because this really feels like you can get the best of both worlds.
Yep.
And I mean, even on top of that, they have your skin actually visually changes.
Yes.
As you use your gun skins in the Forge Arena, for those that don't know, they wear and they have a float value.
Yep.
And the closer that float value gets to, I think, 1.0 as opposed to 0, the dirtier the gun looks and the more it wears on the skin of the gun. So some people will look at that and they'll go, oh, well, as soon as my gun starts getting weared, I don't want it to look not perfect, so I want to sell this when it's at float value 0.5.
Yeah.
Whereas there's going to be other people who are like, nah, I want this thing to look as dirty and gross and war-torn as possible so people realize how much I've used this skin to destroy people with, right? So, yeah, the worn skin will have less value than the more clean skin monetarily maybe, but to the player who uses it, it might not necessarily be the case. And so there's always, I don't know, everything seems designed for both those types of players, the really sentimental ones and the ones that just want to progress, earn, get better, have higher rarity, and grind to the top.
What would you say Forge is missing if you had to pinpoint something?
What would I say Forge is missing?
Because I find this a little harder to think of off the top of my head.
I actually know the answer to that.
Okay.
The only thing they're missing for me is, and I think they're things they're going to implement. Okay. The first thing they need is a bigger crowd.
Okay.
Because one thing I do notice with them is that it's almost exclusively European players or other players than North American. The North American player base is very small.
Okay.
That's partly because that's where the fan base of Counter-Strike and those types of shooters is. But that will come with time. They're also releasing on Epic Games launcher, so that will get them way more eyes on their game. And then I think the only other thing they're missing is just being open source.
Okay.
I really think that Forge is the closest to the perfect model, because if you create a good gameplay system, you create a good NFT system, and then on top of that, you open it up to everyone and go, hey, now you guys can start building this content. You guys start building some levels. You guys start arranging some tournaments and come up with your own events with our assets.
Okay.
All of my favorite games have the ability for you to go in and use those assets. Fallout 4, Little Big Planet was amazing because it created the whole user-generated content revolution. Even in Fortnite, there's creator-made maps now that are made by different creators.
And all the YouTuber skins.
Totally different. Yeah, YouTuber skins. These are the kinds of things we have to see in these new Web 2 games, in Web 3 games, because the whole point of Web 3 is everything's open for everybody. There's no barriers anymore. So that should be included in the gameplay too. You should have your source files able to be worked on, and people be able to do a mod community. Any Steam game that has a huge mod community and has a ton of Steam Workshop mods, guess what? They're all still at the top of the Steam market.
That's right.
Skyrim is still one of the most played games ever because you can mod it to infinity.
Yep.
Right?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because kind of a polarization to that, I think about Grit with Gala Games. Not open source at all. That's not what they're going for. And I'd even maybe debatably not put it in the first person category, because it's kind of more like Red Dead with the bird's eye view. So I'm hesitant to even really kind of mention it here. But I think it's a good example of showing there's no plans for user-generated content there. It's just going to be like a Red Dead experience. Here's your game. Here you go. But high graphics, good awareness into Web3. We've got Gala Games behind it, which is a huge development studio.
Yeah.
Which I do think is going to help with accessibility and getting people excited about crypto games. But they're missing all that long-term modifications and
I think with the whole Gala game system, not just with their FPSs, all they're missing is they either make the pricing or the collection size too prohibitive for people to play, or they just don't focus on like bringing it to full polish level.
Yes.
Yeah. Point. Like realizing the full project and making it an industry standard game that's better than its competitors. With some of them, they've been a total win.
Yes, and then there's others. Yeah, I'm a little hesitant on that, because I do feel like Gala has super high entry points, low earnings, so it's hard to, as a business perspective, to be like, oh, this is a good investment because my ROI is a year or 2 years. It's like, no, it's actually quite a bit more generally, but there's a lot of factors there. What's going on in the market right now? Gala's doing a lot of things, like Gala Music is interesting.
Yeah.
But before we get to sidetrack there, I mean, there's games like Superior, which look pretty fun.
That one, honestly, and that's something I wish I saw more of. Okay. I think for last that I saw, Superior just got released as it's just a free thing you can download on Steam and play what they had. I think they sort of just stopped going forward with that, which is a shame, because the open window that they had that I played it on Gala, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, Horde Waves mode, cooperative roguelike style with like, Borderlands graphics.
Yeah.
And we're playing this on chain with NFTs for everything. Oh my God, get me in there. And I was ready to mint one of those NFTs. Glad I didn't, to be honest, because it just looks like it, didn't go the full way.
We've seen that with Mirandus, and there's been a couple other Gala Games titles where we're all just wondering like what's happening here. But yeah, Superior got a lot of hype. And that gameplay, I'd say that's one thing that really excited me, was the gameplay looked incredible. Get together with your buddies, polished graphics.
Roguelike style is always replayable too.
Yep.
If you make a game that feels like a different round every time, you are going to win. And I think that's just it. Is that like everyone right now is trying to be the first of that type of subgenre. We want to have the first hero shooter. We want to have the first esports competitive shooter, the first military simulator shooter. Right? I think that everybody should just be racing to make the first really good game that hits on all elements.
Agreed. And it's almost hard to keep track of them all. There's like Metal Core, there's Undead Blocks, and they all have like their own unique kind of like Metal Core is kind of interesting. It reminds me of like Counter-Strike, Call of Duty kind of mix.
Yeah.
But once again, graphics aren't there, the lore's not there. So they still have a ways to go. But like when I looked into it recently, I was like, wow, they've got a full marketplace. I can go in and buy weapons. I can do all this. I'm like, how come I didn't know about this? So same thing, their community, they really need to focus on growing that, I feel like, a little bit, because if I'm finding out that they've launched their entire NFT marketplace through secondhand information when I'm actively involved in this space, maybe it's just coincidence, but that usually shows me, hey, they're not getting the message out there, and maybe they're not ready. Maybe it's still in alpha, it's still in beta. They haven't got the marketing budget figured out yet. They're still kind of doing a raise. There's lots of factors.
Part of the problem with scale is the accessibility.
Yes.
Like I think really the perfect, like if we circle it all back, the perfect game for this needs to be like you can go and tell your gamer friend tomorrow, this is how you make an account, and then they can figure that out without needing to contact you for consistent help after. They can just kind of, it just seems very run of the mill, make an account, yada yada yada, and it's done. So it needs to be that accessible. It needs to be addictively fun.
Yes.
So it needs to be like superior. Forge Arena, they have a really addictive gameplay loop.
Yep.
Same with Meta Ops. And then it also needs to have a world outside of the gameplay mode, and it needs to either give you worthwhile earnings in terms of like just dopamine rush of getting items and stuff that's on chain that you can then sell later, or be like, exclusive enough that you're constantly extracting something from it.
Yeah. Here's another one that's Earth from Another Sun. Actually, this one was pretty neat because I like randomly stumbled upon kind of an alpha access, and I was able to get in at the ground with like everybody else, and there was this one kind of map, single player map. You were able to go to you're in like your spaceship, you could teleport down to the planet, and you had to run through like this cave of aliens. And what was really impressive to me was the colors, like the vibrancy of the world design. Yes, the graphics weren't Unreal 5, but the level of detail in the aliens and the feel of the guns, and like even different guns had different rounds that had different speeds. So like there was this like energy one where you could see the ball.
Oh, projectile speeds
and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. And getting just to kind of play that, I was like, okay, I'm interested in this. And now seeing what they're doing, they want to do like massive where you're like on a planet, you've got your buddies with you, a team of 5, and there's literally 10,000 aliens rushing you. Good luck. Almost like imagine zombie horde, but now you've got aliens. Yeah. And then I've even seen gameplay clips of like people on like speeder bikes and like mechs and like all kinds of weird other stuff that they're kind of trying to add.
That's why I think that one's actually it's good that you bring that one up, because that one has a really unique gameplay formula too. Because you can just pre-purchase it on Steam. You can buy like a $30 Steam like access pass that has nothing to do with crypto at all. It just lets you play the game early, and then when they go free to play, there you go, you're already in. Or you can pay the exact same $30 for an NFT, like at the floor for one of their companion NFTs, and be on the chain side of it. Exact same game. They claim they're going to update it on both sides the whole time. So I think that's a really interesting way of doing it. Me too. And and again, circling back to the gameplay, one of the reasons I think that project's going to succeed is because they have a unique element.
That's right.
You have like this strategy element where you can command troops to do things in Earth from Another Sun while you're also one of the people on the ground. So it's got like a Battlefront type of element.
Yeah, Star Wars Battlefront. That's a good
exactly.
analogy.
So like you're commanding hordes of units, fighting hordes of units, but you're also still one guy. I think that's unique.
Me too.
It's not, I've seen other games where they're just literally cloning another game and then making different characters and different NFTs, and it just comes down to, if it's not that game, or like if it's that game or worse, why is anyone who's playing that game going to choose that instead?
That's right.
If you're making Fortnite but worse, or Fortnite with less characters,
it's going to be to extract value.
Yeah, it's just not going to do you anything unless you have a unique something to bring to the table.
And now that actually leads me to one that I feel like has cloned a Web 2 kind of version, but they're doing it in such a great way that it still makes me excited. It's Undead Blocks. So Undead Blocks kind of flies under the radar a little bit for some people. It doesn't make a lot of top 5 lists sometimes, but others it does. And it's really just zombies, right? Like
just
that's
like
the
Call of Duty zombie
that's the easiest way to explain it. It's zombies, generally smaller maps, so there's less areas to hide and coordinate, but you can bottleneck zombies and stuff. But you buy the weapons, of course, and depending on the weapon rarity and weapons, it depends on your earnings. So like the more you spend on the NFTs for the better weapons, the better your earnings can be.
But it doesn't affect their statistics.
But it doesn't affect their statistics or anything. And it looks a lot of fun. I've played it briefly. There's a bit of an entry. You need to kind of get the weapon. You realize really quickly, shoot, I just have a crappy weapon. Okay, I need to go spend some money and buy an AK, or I need to buy a shotgun. So there is this but the game does a good job at enticing you to do that, because you want to get further in the waves. You want to get further progressed. So now all of a sudden you're like, shoot, I'm stuck here. I need to go spend again. I need to go spend again. And I think games that can capture that well will do good, because then they're going to have constant liquidity going back into the system. It's kind of what I was mentioning earlier, getting NFTs and assets over just the coin, because if you can progress further in the game, there's always that part of your brain that's going to go, well, I can earn more. I can maximize my earning by progressing. And now you're actually keeping all the value within the ecosystem more, because people simply want to get to that end game, want to get to that next level, because they have that promise of, well, when I get there, I'll be able to earn the most. And now you don't constantly have people just taking out the tokens and coins and trying to throw them on exchanges and extract value out, which really the only way to fix that is having more new players come in.
Well, that's the whole gameplay loop thing. You need to have people want a reason to not leave the system. You need to make your game like a casino resort.
Oh, there you go.
That's you need to make it like, you can go play slots at a whole bunch of other places. You can buy drinks at a bunch of other places. You could get gifts at a bunch of other places. Watch performances at other places. But if you stay here on the resort in our casino here, we'll give you a bunch of benefits for doing so.
Exactly.
Right? Well, then why would I bother leaving the resort? I'm here. My hotel room's right above me. Why bother going anywhere else? You need to create a system of gameplay that's that addictive for you to keep subsisting yourself.
Agreed.
If you're planning to give earnings. If you're planning to just make a game and then have parts of it on chain, you don't necessarily need to do that. Right? You just need to deliver a great product and have people want to get those on-chain items for the sake of playing the fun game, right?
Because here's a really good thing I could way to explain that too is, and you can kind of relate this to a lot of other games that went through the bull run. If you want to extract value from a game and you're taking the tokens out and you're selling it on exchange, that's great. That's your prerogative. And there's actually, as a business, that's what we look for in a lot of games. What's our ROI timeline, all of this. But you constantly need an influx of new players coming in. So if you really break it down, those new players are providing exit liquidity for the current players.
Yeah.
Right? What happens when a game settles and you've got a solid community? Price goes down. That's not going to reward the community members that stay long term. And it actually puts a ton of pressure on the projects. We have to be marketing. We have to constantly be adding new players. We have to constantly find ways to rope people in. You're going to hit a cap. And if it's just based on token earnings, everyone who felt like they've spent all their time and really gotten far in the game is going to not have such a great experience. But when it's NFTs and stuff, well, what happens with rare sought after NFTs? The OGs that have been playing for a very long time will value those assets much higher and hang on to them. So now there's all this more inherent value and appreciation of value into the assets, which can actually balance that depreciation of tokens. And now you don't need a game that has to just feed new players nonstop into the entire thing. And then the moment the new players stop, the game just dies.
Yeah. And I think that's why events are important too.
Same.
Because if you use NFTs as a reward in events, like for example, I'm sure you've heard of like POAPs, where it's like proof of attendance type of pictures. Like if you make your NFT gun skin something that not only is a reward you were giving at a tournament, but it's also only could be earned during that tournament. For example, before they like got their current model, they had a tournament that NVIDIA sponsored. So there's like there's 3 skins that are NVIDIA skins on there, and those are considered like the cream of the crop forged skin to have, because you have to have been a super OG and been at that tournament for you to even have had a chance of getting it.
That's right. That's only going to appreciate.
Exactly. So I think that is something people need to think about. You need to always make sure that that if it's not in a monetary sense, that people have clout and something to really show off.
And that's what I think will help that sustainability, because we know a lot of games after they've been out for many, many years, you do get this core community. But like I've mentioned a few times now, the inherent problem in Web3 is the need to constantly be bringing new people in just to feed the liquidity. We don't want all our games having a couple year shelf life.
Yeah.
Right. We want games to see them succeed and last longer.
That's also where we find these like hasty NFT collections come out. I find a lot of projects, when they get to that point where they're like, oh, we're like, people are starting to run out of stuff to get or do. Let's just make another NFT collection so we can make a bunch more money and shove this into the system so that we can let this like wean for longer, kind of a thing. And I've seen these rushy kind of collections where it's just like, it's the same thing but on a different chain, or It's a different kind of item, but we're basically just basically gives you access to the game. You know,
and I'm always suspicious of that because I'm like, are you just extracting value from your community,
without
or are
adding
you
utility.
actually adding utility? Is there a good reason for this next NFT launch, or is it just a fundraising event? So I know we're running out of time. One thing I want to ask you, there's a few things, but I think I'll start with this one. Has there been any new FPSs that you've stumbled on that you think is worth mentioning? And maybe if not, kind of just to summarize a lot of things, what gets you most excited about this genre?
What gets me most excited about this genre is that it's one of the, like, after I've seen the way CS:GO skins have gone, and I've seen the way, like, how much people care about battle passes and just earning skins off of a battle pass. It's very clear that there's a lot of room for a lot of creativity because anyone can make so many different kinds of skins. The more skins we have, the more people want to play, very clearly by Fortnite. You know, I just think that FPS has one of the biggest opportunities to do this right first, whereas other systems are going to require a lot more thought to change that genre into a working blockchain version of
I
that
agree
genre.
with you there. Like MMOs, I think kind of makes sense. Oh, all the items are NFTs. And we've seen with big time, no, actually, that's not a good way to do it. It has to be cosmetic because if the items with stats give NFTs, you're going to do a pay to win model.
It's pay to earn.
And it was like,
you're pay to win, rather.
Yeah. So it's like, I agree with you. I feel like the FPS has a clear shot. It's also why Mavia comes up so much for me because I just feel like that game genre is made for crypto. It's resource management. Like it just makes sense to me.
Totally.
But then there's other genres like casual games. Well, Blanco's Block Party, here's a good example. There's no earnings. It's just cosmetics. But they're doing really well with that because it's just a casual game. It's not about extracting value. It's about making your character look cool, kind of like on Roblox.
Yeah, Roblox is a really good place to point to because if you look at how much utility are they giving, they're just giving people the ability to play games within their game system.
That's right.
And just look cool the way they want to doing it and earn stuff that helps them look cool doing that by playing those games.
Yeah.
So,
was there any FPSs that I didn't mention today that you think
I think the one that just popped up on my radar, I don't know. No financial advice. I don't know if this is good or bad yet because I haven't tried it yet, but I just got into the alpha of a game called Meta DOS. Okay. And they're looking like they're doing... The graphics look like Fortnite. The genre is more like a hero shooter. So think Apex Legends where you have like a certain type of character that has very specific powers.
Cool.
Yeah, and the other cool thing I think that they did was that they kind of made the blockchains into characters. So there's like
interesting.
Yeah, there's like an actual like Binance looking type of character. There's a girl that's name is Solana and she's like got a ninja mask and there's a sniper and she's all green and purple.
Nice.
So they made I think that part of it's unique. Are they bringing anything new to the table that's going to make me stop playing Fortnite or all those other games? I don't know. But it's something I got into the alpha of and it looks really clean for the gameplay. So that's something to keep on your radar.
Now, thanks for bringing that up. It's kind of interesting. One thing I'll kind of end us off with here is, you know, especially over the last 6 months, everything's shifted to fun, right? Games need to be fun, all this. But if the earnings are good and there's good utility, people will play the game even if the fun is slightly lacking. So I'm waiting to see the one that kind of gets both nailed down, right? Yeah. And we haven't quite seen it. We've got some glimpses. There's market conditions that matter. There's so many factors there. But the one that nails both, I think, is just going to blow everything out of the water because people are going to enjoy what they're playing and they're going to be able to make money from it. And let's not kid ourselves. Money motivates. Totally. It really does. Yes, people play games for fun, but the moment you add now you can add money and now you can make money from it, like I'd play something I'm a little less interested in if the profits are good. I just would. I mean, Karma vs. Zombies is a great example. I have no interest in Bejeweled games. And I was like, this is actually kind of fun. I'm kind of enjoying it. Happens to do really well with earnings. So now I'm more enticed to play this genre of game that I didn't. So I even think FPS has an opportunity to bring more people in to the genre. Because if the earnings can be good, there's going to be more enticement to be like, hey, just come play some rounds, you know, see how you feel. And people are like,
well, I think that's why fun has become the conversation because it's got to be fun even when we're not in a bull run.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Well said.
Even when the market is pooping on you, you're like, you want to keep grinding because you know when it's not only going to be just as fun, it's also going to be profitable. But you need the baseline of fun because if the market goes down and it's not even all that fun, now you got a double negative on you. Yeah. But like you said, on the other side of the end, if it's really fun to begin with, people will weather the storm and keep playing because they know that when it gets good again, it was awesome.
That's right.
So
Yeah, good stuff. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for everyone joining us today. I hope that was insightful as we got to talk about just the FPS genre in general. Of course, like we mentioned before, Tuesdays we do game nights. Definitely make sure you're in our Discord if you're not. We also have research reports on all these first-person shooters. So we've done tons of research. We've got confidence ratings. We grade them on their tokenomics, their community, their gameplay loop, fun factor, their team. Saves you guys a ton of time trying to research any of these. So definitely make sure to join us in our community. And until next time, cheers. Don't forget about our 1,000 subscriber giveaway where you can win $200. And if you need more information, be sure to join us on our Discord. See you there.